Please comment where you are watching in the world. Okay, so I met this cute guy on Tinder. All was going well while messaging, so I decided to bus over one night to hang out with him. I lived in a decent-sized college town, so public transit was a normal thing. Anyways, sounded like a good idea in theory, yes? Wrong. I have IBS and an anxiety disorder. We all know where this is going. Ladies, you know the feeling. When you're on the way to hang out with a guy, and your stomach turns to knots, and you're debating on canceling. Why do we all do this? However, unfortunately for me, this feeling overtook me while I was already on the bus. I felt the horrendous stomach ache and anxiety being to creep on. Bubble guts ensued. I told myself no problem. I'll hop off the bus super quick to stop at a connivance store. Only minor problem. I realize we are already in the suburbs, and I am 5 minutes from his house. I have to accept my fate. By the time I get off the bus, I am bending over in pain trying to suction the shit inside of me from leaving my body. I end up nearly running to his house to try to save my favorite American Eagle jeans. I get there and greet him, and politely ask to use the washroom. I turned on the faucet to try and drown out the sound of me literally dying. I was having some of the most extreme IBS shits of my life. Not only that, but my stomach was so upset that I started violently puking up my guts. So loud. There's no way that faucet was drowning out the noise of anything at that point. I had accepted the fact that there I was, stuck in a hot guy's washroom, absolutely obliterating it. I hoped I could just blame it on food poisoning and spend the night watching movies on the couch. I was planning my whole act when I went to flush. And then the unimaginable happened. I clogged the fucking toilet. I have never clogged a toilet in my life, and of course it had to happen right then and there. So I did what any rational person in that situation would do. I left. I simply put the seat down, ordered an Uber, washed my hands, and left. Told him I'll be right back. As soon as I left the house, I blocked him on everything. It has been 3 years, and I'm still ashamed and mortified. This poor boy had to deal with all of that and unclog his own toilet while just trying to get some pussy. Marin apologized for things most people didn't notice. She said sorry when she sat down too quietly. Sorry for texting me too late at 9:45 p.m. Sorry for eating the last fry from our shared plate, even though I'd already offered it. I just don't want to be a burden, she'd whisper, curling into herself. I thought it was sweet, gentle. I thought she'd been through something rough. Maybe she had an ex who punished her for every tiny misstep. So I made it a point to reassure her. Told her, you don't have to be sorry. Ever. Looking back, I wonder if that's where it started. We met at a wine bar neither of us liked. Her friend bailed on her, my date ghosted. She was sitting at the counter, fiddling with her necklace. I ordered the cheapest glass they had and accidentally sat too close. She looked over and smiled like I'd walked out of a dream she'd forgotten. We started talking, and the night melted. She was shy but clever, with a voice so soft I had to lean in to catch half of what she said. She didn't make eye contact often, but when she did, it felt like a spell. We started dating a few days later. At first, she made me feel safe. Like I couldn't mess up. Every time I did something wrong, forgot a plan, left my phone on silent, spaced out during a story, she'd say, "It's okay, I'm sorry I didn't communicate that better." She even apologized when I was late. I laughed about it with friends. Said I'd found the most understanding person alive. But somewhere along the way, her apologies changed. It started small. "I'm sorry you were upset last night," she said one morning. "I wasn't," I replied, confused. She smiled gently. "You were. You just didn't want to show it." Another time. "I'm sorry I made you tell me not to talk about my parents." "I never said that." "You did," she said. "You just didn't use those words." I hesitated. I couldn't remember not saying it. But I couldn't remember saying it either. She looked so hurt. So certain. So I apologized. And that was the first time I said sorry for something I hadn't done. Over time, things got murky. She'd bring up things I didn't remember. Arguments we never had. Promises I didn't recall making. "You said you'd be there for my audition," she whispered once, tears brimming. "I waited an hour." Marin, I didn't know about it." "Yes, you did. We talked about it last Tuesday." I checked my phone. No messages. No mention of any audition. Still, I apologized. Because she looked like I'd broken her. And what kind of person breaks someone that fragile? Eventually, I stopped being sure of anything. I'd replay conversations in my head. Check old texts. Journal entries. Recordings even. But I could never find proof, just gaps. blank spaces where her memory stood louder than mine. I started second-guessing everything. Did I really raise my voice that night? Did I actually forget her birthday? It wasn't for another month, was it? She kept apologizing too, endlessly like a looped prayer. I'm sorry I remembered it wrong. I'm sorry you had to feel like the bad guy. I'm sorry I made you do this to me. The words came like rain, gentle, persistent, flooding everything. One night, I woke up sweating, heart racing. I'd had a dream. Maren was standing at the foot of my bed, whispering my name, over and over, each time more sorrowful than the last. I looked around. Empty room. I reached for my phone. There was a message from her. I'm sorry if I woke you. I never heard the door open. I started pulling away. Stopped replying to every text. Took longer to answer calls. Gave vague excuses for why I couldn't come over. She noticed. Did I say something wrong? She asked. I'm sorry. You didn't. I just need space. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry I made you feel that way. I just thought we were connected. You always said I could tell you anything. I didn't remember saying that, but I nodded. Then I found the notes. I'd gone to her apartment while she was out, just to grab my sweater. The drawer she always told me not to open was already cracked. Inside were stacks of paper, labeled, organized, conversations, arguments, moments of clarity, all meticulously dated, time-stamped, and written from her point of view. March 4th, he said he didn't want me talking to Rob anymore. I cried. He said I was being dramatic. March 17th, he forgot our anniversary dinner. I stayed quiet so he wouldn't feel bad. April 1st, he told me I'm not allowed to mention my parents again. Said it brings the mood down. None of it was true. I hadn't said any of those things. I know I hadn't. Had I? That night, I confronted her. She didn't deny it. She didn't even look surprised. I just needed to remember things clearly, she said. You change your mind so often. Sometimes I feel like I'm going crazy. I stared at her. Maren, none of those things happened. She blinked. Yes, they did. I left. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't explain. I blocked her number. Deleted our texts. Changed my locks. Spent weeks trying to scrub her from my life like a virus. But memory is a faulty archive. And guilt is a good editor. It didn't end there. I started receiving emails from her. Strange, long emails written like journal entries. I know you need time. I'm sorry. I'm working on myself. You were right to be mad. I shouldn't have made you feel like you had to lie. I forgive you, even if you won't forgive yourself. I never replied, but I read every one. Some part of me needed to. Then came the package. No return address. Inside, a binder. My name on the cover. Inside, new notes. Notes from after I left. He texted me goodnight at 2:04 a.m. I know he still thinks of me. He told me in a dream that he missed how I see him. He says sorry in his silence. I closed the binder and set it on fire. Watched it turn to ash in the bathtub. I moved cities. Got a new phone. New job. New everything. But still, on certain nights, I wake up at 2:04 a.m. with the memory of a voice whispering, I'm sorry I made you forget who you are. And I start to wonder, did she dream me into the villain? Or did I dream her into the victim? Because the cruelest kind of ghost is the one that makes you doubt you were ever alive. Lucan Vale was the kind of man people wrote poems about. Not love poems. Not the light kind. The kind where obsession feels like art. The kind with dripping ink and clenched teeth. When I met him, he was reading Anna Karenina in a bar. Alone. He looked out of place, but completely at ease. He didn't glance up until I ordered the same drink as him. A smoky bourbon I didn't even like. Good taste, he said, without smiling. It wasn't a flirt. It was a statement. Lucan wasn't charming in the conventional sense. He was magnetic. Everything he did felt like it had weight. When he looked at you, it wasn't to observe, it was to study. He made compliments sound like diagnoses. Made silence feel like permission. When we started dating, he was all depth and intensity. He wrote to me, not texts but letters. On thick paper, sealed with wax. In them, he called me his only mirror. Said I was the quiet before every storm. I mistook control for passion. And worship for love. At first, he was protective. You don't have to wear that if you're with me, he'd say, touching my hemline. I like you better raw. He meant without makeup, without effort. He said beauty was honesty. I don't want the version you give everyone else, he told me. Just mine. So I stopped dressing up. Stopped going out with friends. Started folding myself into a shape that only fit inside his life. Lucan didn't raise his voice. Ever. He lowered it. When I said something he didn't like, he'd pause and look at me disappointed, not in rage, but in pity. I thought you were different, he'd say. I thought you got it. What was it? The rules. The language of him. The quiet manipulations stitched into his love like landmines. It started with small things. He didn't like me laughing too loudly. Said it was jarring. Didn't like when I ordered food without asking what he wanted first. Said it was self-centered. Didn't like when I disagreed with his opinion about a movie. Said it was aggressively contrarian. So I adjusted, one thread at a time. Pulled myself in until I wasn't sure what the original fabric looked like. He started quoting me back to myself. Things I said in passing, reframed, twisted, turned into evidence. You said you don't trust people, he'd remind me. So why are you questioning me? You said you hate being alone. I'm giving you what you need. You told me you feel broken. I'm trying to hold the pieces. At some point, I forgot that relationships weren't supposed to feel like interrogations. The first time I tried to leave, he locked the door. He didn't yell. He just stood between me and the exit. You don't get to leave halfway through the story, he said. I froze. Sit, he told me. I did. He apologized the next morning. Took me out for breakfast. Held my hand like nothing happened. Gave me a necklace with a charm shaped like a key. So you always feel free, he said. After that, I stopped trying. I told myself it wasn't that bad. He never hit me. He never screamed. He just pressed. Pressed until I bent. Until I couldn't tell the difference between care and control. I lost my job. Couldn't focus. Lucan said, maybe it's time you focus on what matters. I stopped seeing friends. Lucan said, they don't get you the way I do. I started waking up in tears and didn't know why. Lucan said, you're too sensitive for the world. He made me keep a journal. Document your process, he said. Write down what you learned from me. I filled pages with contradictions. One day, he sees the real me. Another, I don't know what the real me is anymore. One night, I left it open by mistake. The next morning, Lucan was quiet. He handed me a fresh notebook. Said, let's start again. I stayed for 7 more months. Because I was scared. Because I was tired. Because I forgot how to leave. Then came the phone call. A friend I hadn't heard from in a year. She said she missed me. That she'd seen a photo of me on someone's feed, thin, hollow-eyed, standing behind Lucan like a shadow. You okay? She asked. I almost said yes. Instead, I whispered, no. And just like that, something broke open inside me. I left that night. Didn't pack. Didn't write a note. Just walked out while he was asleep. I stayed with my friend. Cut my hair. Got a new number. A new job. A therapist. Started breathing again. Lucan didn't chase me. Not right away. But a week later, I found something taped to my apartment door. A page torn from my old journal. He'd highlighted one line. He is the center of everything. Under it, he wrote, you don't get to rewrite truth. I changed buildings. Moved cities. Still, he found ways to reach me. A package at my office. No return address. Inside, a photo of us, framed in black, with a caption scratched into the glass. Chapter 1. The last message he ever sent came 6 months later. A typed letter. No greeting. Just, the sequel's better. I burned it. But sometimes, I still dream in his voice. Still feel his hand on my back when I walk into a room. Still wonder which parts of me were ever mine to begin with. Because leaving is one thing. But getting out of the story, that takes longer. Winna called me every night for 2 weeks before we ever met in person. We matched on a dating app, something mindless I'd downloaded to fill the silence. Her messages were poetic, thoughtful, full of metaphors. She didn't flirt so much as weave herself into your imagination. She asked about my childhood, my dreams, my worst memory. She called the first time just to say goodnight. Your voice matters, she said. It should be heard. I thought it was sweet. Thought she was different. I didn't realize I was mistaking intensity for intimacy. We met on a rainy Tuesday. She showed up to the cafe in a wool coat, hair braided down her back, eyes sharp as flint. Her presence was a storm you didn't realize you'd stepped into until you were soaked. She reached across the table and took my hand. I'm glad you're real, she whispered. I was afraid I imagined you. I laughed awkwardly, but I didn't pull away. Winna didn't ease into things, she surged. Within a week, she was texting me constantly. Morning check-ins. Midday misuse. Nighttime questions that spiraled into confessions. At first, I felt chosen. Who doesn't want to be adored? But it started to weigh on me. The messages piled up when I didn't answer fast enough. Voice memos, missed calls, emojis that shifted from hearts to broken hearts to skulls. The worst part? She was always eloquent about it. Even her jealousy sounded like poetry. The silence between us feels like a betrayal I haven't earned. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I apologized. A lot. I told her I had work, that I couldn't be on my phone all the time. She said she understood. Then she showed up at the cafe where I worked. I was behind the counter, mid-shift, apron stained, when she walked in and sat at the corner table like she belonged there. I froze. She smiled, waved, watched me the whole shift. Later, I asked why she came. You said you were busy, she said, but I needed to see you. I didn't want to assume I wasn't welcome. That night, we argued for the first time. I need space, I said. Space from what? She asked. Me. I'm not saying I don't want you. I'm saying I need air. I am the air, she said. She cried. Then she kissed me so hard it felt like an apology and a punishment at once. I started pulling away. Took longer to reply. Set boundaries. Blocked her once. She emailed me instead. Then came to my apartment and left flowers at the door. Blue hydrangeas. My favorite. I never told her that. She showed up again. This time with a knife. Not in her hand. In her bag. We were arguing, again, outside my building. I said I needed time. That I couldn't do this anymore. Her voice was calm. Scarily calm. I just want to cut through the lies, she said, reaching into her bag. I panicked. Thought she was going to hurt me. But she didn't. She held the knife out. Handle first. Here, she said. If you're afraid of me, hold it. Then I'll be the one exposed. I didn't take it. She left. I reported her the next day. The police filed a report, but said there wasn't much they could do. She didn't threaten you, the officer said. She gave you the knife, right? I nodded. That's not a crime. She vanished after that. Blocked me everywhere. Stopped showing up. No emails. No texts. For a while, I thought it was over. I started sleeping again. Started breathing. But the phone calls began 3 weeks later. Every Tuesday. 3:03 a.m. No caller ID. The first time I answered. No voice. Just breathing. I hung up. They kept coming. Every Tuesday. Every call the same. Breathing. Maybe a faint hum in the background. Like music from another room. Once, I thought I heard her voice whisper my name. But maybe I imagined that. Maybe I needed to. I changed my number. The calls still came. Different numbers. Same time. I stopped answering. But they always left voicemails. Always blank. Except for the breath. I moved. New address. New phone. New routine. Still the calls came. And then came the ringing. Not just my phone. But inside the house. From somewhere I couldn't find. It would start around 3:03. A low tone. Not a song. Not an alarm. Just a single, endless ring. It wasn't from any device I owned. It lasted exactly 33 seconds. Then silence. I started hearing it in other places. At work. On the bus. In the bathroom. That low, steady tone. Always for 33 seconds. Always at 3:03. I stopped sleeping. I started recording the sounds. Nothing ever played back. I saw her once. Across the street. Just standing there. She didn't wave. She didn't move. Just watched me. Then she stepped behind a bus shelter and disappeared. I started dreaming about the ring. In the dreams, it came from inside my chest. I'd wake up gasping, convinced there was a phone lodged in my ribcage, vibrating against bone. Sometimes, I dreamed she was calling from underground. From inside the walls. One night, I stayed up. Sat in the dark. Waited. 3:03. The ring began. I stood up and walked toward the sound. It came from my closet. I opened the door. Nothing. Just clothes. Dust. And one thing I hadn't seen before. A photo. Taped to the wall. Of me. Sleeping. On the back, written in red ink. I told you I'm the heir. I moved again. Farther this time. New state. New number. Burner phone. Still the ringing comes. Every Tuesday. 3:03. No voice. Just breath. And love that won't let go. Solon came from the kind of family that has art on their walls you can't touch in silence that hums louder than music. The first time I met him, He was sitting alone in a campus lounge, sketching something on a napkin. I complimented the lines, sharp, architectural, beautiful in their coldness, and he said, "It's a house I'll build when I stop wasting time with people." I laughed. He didn't, but he looked up at me and said, "You can sit if you want." And just like that, I was inside the orbit of someone who didn't open doors so much as expect them to be held for him. Solon was clever in a way that made me feel slow. He quoted authors I hadn't heard of, described music in terms of geometry, and listened with such intensity that I started doubting every word I said before I finished it. He told me I had emotional excess, that I spoke in parentheses. But when he touched me, it was like falling into silence. I mistook that silence for peace. We dated for 3 months before he invited me to dinner with his parents. "They want to meet you," he said casually, as though it weren't a trial. He mentioned that they were a little traditional, but that they were tolerant in the way people are when they believe they're cultured. I wasn't sure what that meant. I said yes anyway, because I wanted to be seen. The house was enormous. White walls, polished glass, minimalist furniture arranged with surgical precision. The kind of place that looks staged for a magazine, but feels hollow when you step inside. His mother greeted me at the door. Her makeup was perfect in the way statues are perfect. "You must be the artist," she said, kissing the air beside my cheek. His father followed, broad-shouldered, quiet, with a handshake like a formality. We sat in the living room first, drinking wine that tasted like melted coins. They asked me where I studied. I told them I was finishing my BFA in painting. His father nodded slowly. "So you paint for a living?" "Trying to," I said, trying to smile. His mother laughed. "That's adorable." Dinner was served on plates I was afraid to touch. The food looked like it had been arranged by a designer, not a cook. Solon said nothing for the first 10 minutes, just ate, eyes low, expression blank. Then the questions began again. "Are you planning on doing grad school, or? What do your parents think of your career? Do you sell your work, or is it more of a passion project?" I answered politely, tried to stay graceful. Solon didn't speak. Not once. He just watched his plate like it might speak for him. When his mother asked if I was currently working in food service to support the art habit, I laughed nervously. "Yes," I said, "but just until I graduate." His father chuckled. "At least it's honest work." His mother sipped her wine. "I suppose everyone needs a hobby." I looked to Solon. He was cutting his chicken into perfect squares. He didn't look up. Later, after dessert, I excused myself to the bathroom. I didn't cry. Not yet. When I came out, the living room was dim and quiet. But something was wrong. My portfolio was on the table. Open. They were flipping through it like a photo album of a distant cousin's child. "This one looks like a mushroom cloud," his father said, chuckling. His mother held up a page. "Is it supposed to be abstract, or is that just how it turned out?" Solon sat beside them, silent, still. My chest tightened. "That's mine," I said, voice cracking. They turned, unfazed. "Of course it is," his mother said. "We were just admiring the courage. So unafraid of form." I looked at Solon again. He didn't blink, didn't flinch. He just looked at me, like I'd already failed him. We drove home in silence. Halfway there, I said, "Why didn't you say anything?" He didn't answer. So I said it again, louder. "They were cruel." Still nothing. Finally, he whispered, "You want people to understand you. That's your weakness." I stared at him. He kept his eyes on the road. I didn't go back to his house after that, but I didn't leave him either, because part of me still wanted to pass the test, to prove I belonged. Weeks passed. He grew colder, stopped answering texts right away, started canceling plans with vague excuses. He never apologized. He never asked how I was doing. When I brought up the dinner again, he said, "It's not my job to defend you. If you can't stand up for yourself, don't expect others to." I finally left after finding a note under my pillow, written in his handwriting. "What's the point of a muse who doubts herself?" After I left, I started painting again, but everything I made came out wrong. Colorless, quiet, like the silence had seeped in. Months later, I saw a photo online. Solon at another gallery. Beside him, a new partner, polished, professional, probably someone with a law degree. Someone serious. The caption read, "Sometimes you have to leave small things behind to build something lasting." My name wasn't mentioned, but I felt it all the same. I no longer eat off plates that are too perfect. I no longer explain my art to people who smile while they cut me open. And I no longer wait for people like Solon to defend me, Because the only thing colder than silence is someone who claims to see you and chooses not to speak. Jenny liked my hair from the moment we met. Not in the way people usually say they like your hair. Not a compliment, not flirtation. She said it reverently. We met at a bookstore hosting a poetry reading. I was browsing the metaphysics shelf when she walked past, then turned back and stared at me. "Your hair is the color of smoke," she said. "It means you've survived something." I laughed. Thanks." She didn't laugh back, just smiled softly. It's rare to see someone whose spirit hasn't left their body yet. She handed me a book I hadn't noticed, Folklore of the Wound, and disappeared. Inside the cover, she'd scribbled her number. We went out that weekend. She wore long velvet sleeves, carried a satchel that jingled when she moved, and drank tea like she was divining the future in the steam. "I don't believe in accidents," she said during our second date. By the third, she kissed me and whispered, "I dreamed you before I met you." And I didn't run. Because Jenny was beautiful in that uncanny way. The kind of beautiful that makes you ignore the bells going off in your head. You don't fall in love with people like her. You slip. She started asking for small things. A button from a jacket. A thread from a scarf. The wrapper from a candy I'd chewed. "Just for my altar," she'd say with a playful smile. "Keeps the energy balanced." I thought it was eccentric. Artsy. Maybe even kind of sweet in a weird, witchy way. Then she asked for my hair. "I want a piece of you," she said, brushing her fingers through it. "Just a strand." I gave her one. She tied it with red thread and kissed it before slipping it into her pocket. Her apartment looked like a dream built on bones. Candles burned in every corner. The walls were covered in old mirrors and strange symbols I couldn't place. Bundles of herbs hung upside down from the ceiling. Books were stacked in uneven towers, all worn and thick with margins scribbled in black ink. I found a box once while looking for a charger. Inside, dozens of tied clumps of hair. Curled, looped, labeled. One had my name on it. Another said, Tomas, 2017. Another, Marie failed. I didn't say anything. Because I didn't know how to say, "What the hell is this?" The dream started after that. Vivid, strange. I'd wake up covered in sweat, unable to move for minutes. In them, I stood in a circle of candles, whispering words I didn't understand while something watched me from the shadows. I told her. She smiled. "That means the ritual is working." "What ritual?" I asked. She shrugged. "Don't worry. You're safe with me." I laughed it off. Told myself it was just her aesthetic. Just an identity. Just the things lonely girls do to feel in control. But things kept getting worse. I found carvings on the underside of my bed frame. Small symbols etched with something sharp. I asked Jenny about them. She didn't deny it. "They're protective," she said. "For your aura. You carved them into my furniture without asking." "I love you," she said, as if that explained everything. I started seeing her in my dreams, even when I was alone. Started feeling her fingers on my forehead before I fell asleep. Woke up one night to find her standing over me, whispering words I couldn't understand. "What are you doing?" I asked, heart pounding. "Sealing the bond," she said, stroking my hair. I didn't sleep for 2 days after that. I tried to pull away. Told her I needed space. That I was overwhelmed. She didn't scream. Didn't cry. She just tilted her head and said, "But we're already connected." Then she left. That night, I found a wax figure on my doorstep. Small. Pale. Humanoid. It had my hair embedded into its scalp. And its chest was hollow. I didn't open it. I burned it. Or tried to. It didn't catch fire. Just melted slowly. Smoked black. Smelled like blood. The dreams worsened. I woke up with scratches down my back. I checked the cameras. Nothing there. I started hearing whispers in the walls. Felt something shift in my apartment at 3:33 a.m. every night. Lights flickered. Candles I hadn't lit would burn out on their own. I bought sage. Salt. Crosses. Nothing helped. I moved. But Jenny found me. She left a package outside my new place. Inside, a new wax figure. And a note. "This time, don't fight it. Let it finish." I called the police. They took a statement. Said they couldn't arrest someone for witchcraft and candles. They told me to block her. I did. She sent letters instead. Then drawings. Of me. Surrounded by flames. Eyes missing. One drawing showed me sleeping, a hand hovering over my chest. The hand had Jenny's ring. I stopped going outside. Quit my job. Cut off friends. My apartment became a cage. Then a chapel. I drew symbols on the walls myself, desperate to balance whatever she had done. I burned my own hair. I prayed to things I didn't believe in. But still the dreams came. One day, I woke up with dirt under my nails and candles burned down around my bed. I had no memory of lighting them. There was a voice in my head when I woke. Her voice. "You are becoming." I finally confronted her. Cornered her outside the same bookstore where we met. "You need to stop," I said. "I'm not yours. You don't get to do this." She just stared at me. "You gave me your hair," she said, almost sadly. "That means something." "No, it doesn't." She smiled. "It will." That night, I cut all my hair off. Burned it in the sink. Let it turn to smoke. And for a while everything stopped. The dreams. The notes. The whispers. I thought maybe I was free. Until this morning. I found a figure on my porch. Bait. Eyes missing. Heart open. Inside the chest was a tiny scrap of paper. On it, in her writing, "I don't need your hair anymore. You're already mine." Nico had the kind of beauty that felt cinematic. Dark curls, pale skin, eyes so blue they looked unreal, like someone had turned up the saturation just for him. He spoke in a soft, deliberate voice, like he was always narrating a novel. When we met, at a gallery opening I almost skipped, he was standing alone in front of a painting of a woman screaming into an empty hallway. "I like this one," he said without looking at me. "It feels honest." We talked for 3 hours after that. I left with his number, a fluttering feeling in my chest, and a belief that something important had just begun. He was perfect at first. The kind of attentive that made you feel like the world had paused just for you. He'd send thoughtful messages, poems, quotes, midnight thoughts. He remembered things no one else did. My favorite tea, the way I took my eggs, the childhood scar on my left wrist I never mentioned twice. We went on 5 dates in 10 days. I told myself it was magic. It felt like falling into a soft place. Warm. Safe. Unquestionable. Until it wasn't. The first red flag came wrapped in roses. I'd mentioned my favorite flowers once, in passing, blue violets. They reminded me of a book I loved as a kid. A week later, a bouquet showed up at my office. No note, but I knew who sent them. Sweet, right? But then it happened again. And again. Even when I didn't tell him where I was. A Sunday afternoon at the park with friends, blue violets appeared on the bench beside me. After a yoga class I'd never posted about, a single flower tucked beneath my windshield wiper. Still, I ignored it. Told myself he was just intuitive. Then he showed up outside my work. It was a Tuesday. I was walking to grab lunch when I saw him across the street, just standing there. No call. No text. Just watching me. I smiled and waved. He crossed the street and kissed me. "I missed you," he said. "We didn't plan anything today," I replied. "I know," he said. "But I had a feeling." The next day he showed up again. And the next. I told him I needed space during work hours. He apologized. Brought me a smoothie. Said he just wanted to surprise me. "It's romantic," he said. "You'll see." The turning point came one night when I posted a photo on my private story. Just a drink at a rooftop bar, no location tagged. 20 minutes later, he was there. "I figured it out," he said, smiling. "How?" He shrugged. "You posted a picture of that drink once before." I remembered the background. Traced the string lights. That night, I changed all my privacy settings. Made everything private. Told him gently that I needed boundaries. He smiled, then frowned. "I just want to see you," he whispered. "Why is that wrong?" I tried to pull away after that. Slower replies. Less availability. Polite deflection. He didn't take it well. He messaged more. Called more. Started sending long, looping texts about how much he cared, how afraid he was to lose me, how empty he felt without my voice. One night, he left a voicemail. "You make me real. Without you, I feel like static. Please don't let me disappear." Another night. "I know where you live. I would never hurt you. I just need to be close." I blocked him. Everywhere. Every platform. Every number. Then came the emails. He used burner accounts. Anonymous servers. Some were long and poetic. Others just said, "I'm still here." I came home one night and found a note slipped under my door. It said, "You looked beautiful sleeping." I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called the police. Filed a report. They were kind but non-committal. "No direct threats," they said. "Technically hasn't broken any laws. Keep records. Be careful." I bought blackout curtains. changed the locks, slept with pepper spray by my bed. My heart began to live in my throat. Then he vanished. No calls, no emails, no flowers, no shadow across the street. Weeks passed, then months. I started to breathe again. I moved cities, got a new job, told myself I was safe, started dating someone new, someone kind, quiet, predictable. I never told him about Nico. Some stories feel like curses when you say them out loud. Then it happened again. I found blue violets on my porch. No note, just the flowers, perfectly arranged. I froze, stared at them like they were bleeding. It couldn't be him. He didn't know where I'd moved. I never told anyone. I took a picture, deleted it, threw the flowers in the trash. A week later, another bouquet, a different arrangement. Still violets. This time a small card. No writing, just a single drawn eye. My phone started ringing again. Every Tuesday, 3:03 a.m. No caller ID. No sound on the other end. Just breathing. Steady. Familiar. I changed my number again. But the calls kept coming. New numbers. Same time. I stopped answering. But I couldn't stop knowing. I started seeing him in crowds. Once at the grocery store, his back turned, same curls. Once on a train platform, just the eyes staring. Always gone before I could be sure. But I knew. I moved again. This time across the country. New name on my mailbox. New routine. New life. But fear travels. And shadows are good at waiting. Last week, I found a package. No return address. Inside, a photo of me sleeping. Taken through a window. Blue violets on the windowsill. I moved again. But even now, every Tuesday, I still wake up at 3:03. Sometimes the phone doesn't ring. But I hear breathing anyway. Inside the house. Destina was the kind of person who made you feel lucky just for being near her. The first time I saw her, she was in line ahead of me at a food truck, balancing a phone on her shoulder, a coffee in one hand, and a tote bag sliding down her arm. She turned to me with this bright, exasperated grin and said, "If I drop dead, promise me you'll finish my falafel." I laughed. She winked. And somehow, 5 minutes later, we were eating together on the curb like old friends. By the end of that week, we'd had 3 more spontaneous meetups and 1 proper date. By the end of the second, I was falling. Destina was fire and velvet, charismatic, chaotic, and endlessly distracting. When she talked, she demanded the world's attention. She told stories like they were confessions. Her past was always just blurry enough to sound fascinating. She never asked for permission. She expected yes like the weather expects rain. And I gave them. All of them. At first. I planned her birthday dinner because she didn't believe in planning for herself. "It's more special when someone else cares," she'd said, twirling a piece of hair around her finger. "That way it means something." So I booked the table. A cozy little restaurant, intimate, fairy lights, candles on each table. I made the reservation for 6. She said that was perfect. Just close friends. I picked up the cake myself. Even got the flowers. Wore my best shirt. She was 35 minutes late. When she finally walked in, she wasn't alone. She wasn't even with 5 other people. She brought 17. 17 people. I counted. They flooded in like a wedding party. Loud. Laughing. Throwing their arms around her like they'd missed her for a decade. They took over half the restaurant. Tables were pulled together, chairs dragged across the floor, confused servers scrambling to adjust. I stood up, stunned, and Destina kissed me on the cheek. "You're amazing," she whispered, like I'd known all along. I didn't want to make a scene, so I smiled. I nodded at her friends, said hello, shook hands, sat down and let it all happen. They ordered everything. Wine, appetizers, a round of oysters, more wine, more plates. Someone asked for an off-menu dish, and the waiter just blinked and said they'd see what they could do. I sat there in the middle like a prop. Someone even asked if I was the event planner. I laughed. Too hard. Destina didn't sit beside me. She bounced between conversations, posed for pictures, clinked glasses, told stories that didn't include me. I caught her looking at me once. She gave a thumbs up and mouthed, "You're doing great." When the check came, it was slipped discreetly beside me. The waiter didn't ask. He just placed it in front of me like I'd already signed the contract. I didn't even look at it at first. Just stared at the little leather folder. My name on the reservation. My world tilting. Then I glanced at the number. I had to blink twice to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. It was almost $900. I swallowed hard. I looked around. No one was reaching for their wallets. Some were already standing, stretching, laughing, preparing to leave. Destina caught my eye, winked, then turned back to her conversation. I paid, with a shaky hand and a maxed-out card. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the receipt on my nightstand like a blood-stained napkin. I told myself not to overthink it. Maybe she didn't realize. Maybe she thought we'd split it. Maybe. But no. The next morning, she posted a photo. Her, smiling at the table. Her friends laughing in the background. Candles glowing. Plates full. My chair was cropped out. The caption read, "Blessed to have people who always show up for me." I stared at it for a long time. No tag. No mention. I commented, "Glad you had a good time." She replied with a single heart emoji. Then she deleted the comment. I tried to talk to her about it. Told myself I needed closure. Or maybe just a refund. We met for coffee. She looked radiant, like nothing had happened. She thanked me again for being such a rock star, and said her friends loved the vibe. I said carefully, "You didn't tell me there'd be that many people." She blinked, sipped her latte. "I figured you could handle it. You didn't offer to help pay." She smiled. "You're the one who invited us." "Us?" She shrugged. "Don't twist it. I want to understand what that night was to you." "You're making this weird," she said softly. "It was a beautiful night. Why ruin it with numbers?" I didn't see her for a while after that. I tried to move on, forget the whole thing. But she didn't make it easy. A few weeks later, I ran into someone from the dinner. A woman named Freya, who'd sat beside me that night. She looked surprised to see me. "Oh," she said. "I thought you moved." "I didn't." She smiled awkward. "Weird. Destina said you ghosted. That you blocked her." I blinked. "No, that's not what happened." "Yeah, she said you couldn't handle being with someone in the spotlight. That it intimidated you." My stomach dropped. What else did she say? Freya looked uncomfortable. That you got weird. Controlling. Didn't like sharing her. I left that conversation shaking. I tried messaging Destina. She left me on read. The next day she posted a tweet. "Some people can't love you unless they're the only one who matters. Their love comes with receipts." I became a punchline. A ghost boyfriend. The bitter ex who couldn't handle a queen. Every time I tried to defend myself, it looked worse. More desperate. So I stopped. But I started noticing something. It wasn't just me. A bartender I knew, he dated her briefly, told me she once brought him to a family dinner, then left him with a check after introducing him as her driver. Another guy said she'd used his credit to lease a car, just temporarily, then ghosted him before the second payment. There were patterns, but no one cared, because Destina was untouchable. She floated through lives like perfume, left people gasping and dizzy, then disappeared. Months passed. I still saw her now and then, on mutual friends' stories, at parties I avoided, always glowing, always loved. Then one night I got an envelope under my door. Inside was a photo of that dinner, uncropped. There I was, sitting at the edge of the table, shoulders tense, eyes hollow. A ghost at my own party. On the back she'd written, "You'll always be part of something bigger than you." That night, I took the receipt from my drawer, folded it into a paper crane, and set it on fire. I watched it curl and vanish, and promised myself, never again. Brinna Fay had a laugh like a knife through velvet. She was my best friend. Always had been. We met in 8th grade over a shared hatred for cafeteria chicken nuggets. She was bright, too bright. The kind of person who filled up rooms and shut people down with a glance. I was the quiet one, the sidekick, the shadow to her glittering sun. And I didn't mind. Not for a long time. We did everything together. Slept over at each other's houses, watched movies under a shared blanket, wore matching bracelets made of broken guitar strings and red thread. When I got my heart broken at 16, she said, "You don't need anyone. You have me." I believed her. Even when we drifted to different colleges, different cities, different timelines, I always thought we were safe. Untitled. Tyron was warmth in a denim jacket. I met him at a bookstore of all places. He offered to help me reach a copy of The Bell Jar, which felt both ironic and intimate. We started dating a few weeks later. He was sweet, curious, always asking questions. He made playlists for every mood, drew tiny doodles on napkins, and slipped them into my coat pockets. With him, I felt whole. Naturally, I introduced him to Brinna. It was like watching two puzzle pieces snap into place. They got along too well, laughed a little too hard at each other's jokes, shared looks I didn't understand, but I told myself not to be paranoid. They were both flirty, both bold. I was just being sensitive. That was what Brenna always said about me. "You feel everything too loud," she'd whisper, like it was a compliment. The first real crack came on a random Thursday. Tyron left his phone on the couch while he showered. It buzzed once, twice, then kept going. I didn't mean to look. I didn't. But curiosity is a cruel little thing. The name on the screen said B. The messages. Thinking about last night. "You smell like autumn. Miss you already." Then a selfie. Brenna, wrapped in sheets. Hair wild. Smiling. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I didn't believe it, but because I did. I didn't scream. Didn't cry. Didn't throw the phone across the room. Instead, I waited. Waited for Tyron to step out of the shower, towel slung low, face glowing with steam. I asked him calmly, "Do you love her?" He blinked. "What?" "Brenna. Do you love her?" He sat on the bed. Looked away. "She understands me better," he said quietly. That was it. That was the sentence. I left that night. Packed a bag, ignored his calls, turned off my phone. I walked until my legs went numb, then sat in a park until dawn broke like a bad promise. Brenna messaged me the next day. "You were always too sensitive." No apology. No guilt. Just those 6 words. Like my heartbreak was a flaw in me, an overreaction. Like I was the problem for feeling betrayed. I blocked them both. Tried to erase them. But grief doesn't respond to logic. It doesn't care that someone told you it wasn't that serious or that love is messy. It just sits in your lungs and grows teeth. Time passed. I started over. New city. New job. New people. But the internet has a way of haunting you. Every few months, I'd see them online. In photos. Together. Always smiling. Always cropped. If you didn't know what to look for, you'd never realize the third person had been cut out. Me. There was one photo in particular. Tyron at a festival, Brenna leaning into his shoulder, both laughing under fairy lights. I remembered that night. I took that photo. My thumb was still in the original corner. But they'd edited it out. The betrayal wasn't just that they loved each other. It was that they'd rewritten history. Deleted me from the story. Like I had never mattered. I started collecting the photos. Screenshots. Posts. Captions. At first, it was masochism. But then it turned into evidence. Proof that I existed. One night, after too much wine and a grief-shaped playlist, I messaged Brenna from a burner account. "Do you ever think about what you did?" She responded instantly. "You never really belonged to him. Or to me. Some people are just interludes." I didn't sleep that night. I sat up imagining all the times she had smiled at me, hugged me, told me she loved me. And I wondered, when did she decide I was disposable? Months later, I bumped into them. It was bound to happen eventually. Same city. Same circles. They were at a gallery, holding hands, her wearing a necklace I'd given her years ago. They froze when they saw me. I didn't speak. Just walked past them. But I smiled. Not because I was okay, but because it hurt them. Later that night, I found another photo online. A group shot. Big smiles. Brenna and Tyron in the center. Laughing. Happy. If you zoomed in, you could see me in the mirror behind them, passing by, blurry, half-turned. An accident. A ghost. That was the last time I ever saw them in person. But not the last time I heard from her. Every year, on my birthday, I get a message from a blocked number. Happy interlude. That's all. I used to cry when I read it. Now I just delete it. But some nights, I lie awake and wonder what hurts more. That they betrayed me, or that they never looked back. I met Alara on the worst day of my life. I'd just been fired, budget cuts, nothing personal, and was sitting in a coffee shop staring at my reflection in a black cup of burnt Americano when she slid into the seat across from me. "Bad day?" she asked, without a trace of hesitation. "No introduction." Just that feline smile. I blinked, confused. "Do I know you?" "You look like someone who needs a reason not to go home," she said. "I'm Alara." And just like that, she became a part of my life. She was stunning in a way that made you forget how to talk. Her energy was sharp, like she saw the future and already knew what it would cost you. That night, we talked for hours. She said she was in between jobs, modeling occasionally, working on a screenplay she'd been emotionally incubating for years. She had one of those voices that made you lean closer without realizing it. When she touched your hand, it was deliberate, like she was pulling threads out of your skin. By the time we kissed, outside, beneath flickering neon, I'd forgotten I was supposed to be grieving my job. I forgot everything. She moved fast. Within a week, she was sleeping over. 2 weeks in, she had her favorite coffee stocked in my cabinet. 3 weeks, and she was making breakfast in my t-shirt like she'd been doing it forever. There was something about the way she said my name, soft and echoing, like she was casting a spell. "I feel safe with you," she whispered one night. I felt like a savior. I mistook that feeling for love. It was around week 4 that she asked for money. We were sitting in bed, half watching a movie. She paused the screen and looked at me with a seriousness I hadn't seen before. "I need help," she said. I sat up. "My landlord's being a psycho. I'm short on rent this month. Just a few hundred." I blinked. "I didn't even know you had your own place." She smiled. "Yeah, I'm not there a lot. Too loud. But I still have to keep it. Just in case." I hesitated. She noticed. "I'm good for it," she added quickly. "I swear. Just need to float this month." "I'm not really in a great spot financially," I said carefully. "I just lost my job, remember?" She looked hurt, but she didn't argue. "Okay," she whispered. "I understand." We didn't finish the movie. The next morning, she was gone. No note. No goodbye. I tried texting her. Calling. Nothing. Hours passed. Then I opened Instagram. She'd posted a photo of herself looking out a rainy window. The caption read, "Sometimes the people who claim to care the most disappear when you're most in pain." The comments were immediate. "He sounds like trash. You deserve better." "I've been there. Stay strong, girl." I didn't know what to do. I sent her a message. "Can we talk? I didn't mean to hurt you." She left it on scene. That evening, she posted a photo of her bruised wrist. No explanation. Just the caption. "Not all wounds are visible." My name wasn't mentioned, but I knew what she was doing. The flood began within hours. DMs, comments, emails, strangers telling me I was a monster, that I deserved to rot, that I was a textbook manipulator. People asked if I had done this before. One guy messaged, "Next time, maybe don't break someone just because they trusted you." I couldn't breathe. I tried calling her again. She answered. "You need to stop this," I said. "You're implying I didn't say anything," she said sweetly. "If people assume, that's on them. You're ruining my life." "No," she said. "I'm just telling mine." She hung up. The next day, I got a call from the police. No formal complaint, just a wellness check. An anonymous tip. The officer was polite. Sympathetic, even. But the weight of the unspoken sat between every sentence. I could see it in his eyes. He didn't believe me. I stopped going outside. Friends stopped responding. My neighbors started giving me sideways glances in the hall. I tried to explain, to post my side. But the moment I did, I got accused of gaslighting, of victim blaming, of trying to silence a survivor. Alara posted again. He hit me with his silence. That was the line. It spread like wildfire. Within hours, someone made a graphic of her quote with a photo of her face and the words, "Silence is still violence." I was tagged in every repost. I got fired from a temp job I'd just started. They didn't even pretend it wasn't related. "You're a risk," the HR manager said. "I'm sorry." The same day, I found a note slid under my door. "You can't hide behind your clean record forever." I tried to track her down, go to her building. But when I arrived, her name wasn't on the intercom. I checked the leasing office. "She moved out," the receptionist said. "Left suddenly. Didn't leave a forwarding address." The apartment was wiped clean. But when I got home, I found an envelope on my desk. It hadn't been there that morning. Inside, a single piece of paper. "If you'd just paid the rent, this wouldn't have happened." I stopped sleeping. My chest constantly felt like it was caving in. I started seeing a therapist, but even she looked at me with suspicion when I explained the situation. "You know," she said gently, "perpetrators often minimize their role." I stopped going after the third session. A few months later, a woman reached out to me. Her name was Cass. She'd seen one of the threads accusing me. But instead of joining in, she searched deeper. She found that Alara had pulled similar stunts before, always just vague enough to escape consequences. Always leaving just enough implication to burn someone's life down without ever stepping into court. "She did it to my brother," Cass said. "Almost the exact same script. He still doesn't talk to people. I asked if her brother ever confronted Alara. Cass laughed. You can't confront smoke, she said. She disappears before the fire starts. I never saw Alara again. But every now and then, I see a quote pop up on someone's story. A variation of her words. A soundbite from a podcast. A vague post from someone new, always about a man who betrayed her when she needed him most. No names. Just shadows. Sometimes I wonder if she even remembers me. Or if I was just another story she told to survive. 1 year later, on the anniversary of the first time we met, I got a package. Inside, a crumpled $5 bill. A copy of our first photo together. And a sticky note. Rent's due. The first time I met Elric, he was carrying a tarantula on his shoulder. Not in a cage. Not in a box. Just casually perched there like a brooch made of nightmare. We were at a friend of a friend's art show. One of those warehouse gallery pop-ups with flickering fluorescent lights and experimental jazz humming from a dusty speaker. I was drinking cheap wine out of a plastic cup when Elric appeared beside me, a living Halloween prop clinging to his hoodie. I flinched. He didn't. She's friendly, he said. Her name's Matilda. I nodded, trying to hide my panic. Cool. Super cool. Love spiders. He smiled. No, you don't. But I like that you tried. That was Elric. Observant. Odd. And way too charming for someone who kept live reptiles in his bedroom. We started dating a week later. At first, his weirdness felt like mystery. He had a terrarium in every room, lizards, snakes, insects. He talked to them like they were roommates. He'd whisper to his boa constrictor while cooking, recite poetry to his bearded dragon while folding laundry. Elric the Enchanter, I called him once. He just smiled and said, "Animals are honest." That's all. He wasn't wrong. He was gentle, in an eccentric way. Open but unreadable. When he looked at you, it was like he was peering through a keyhole into your soul. He made you feel chosen. Known. We dated for 2 months before things began to shift. Tiny things at first. He insisted on keeping all the windows closed, even during heat waves. Said the lizards liked it that way. He labeled everything in his apartment, drawers, plates, even chairs. Helps with alignment, he told me. Prevents energy slippage. I rolled with it. Everyone has quirks, right? Then came the spider. It happened late one night. I'd stayed over. We were in bed watching some black and white horror flick from the 60s. Elric fell asleep, his head on my lap. I got up to grab water. I didn't see her. Matilda. She must have been crawling across the rug. I felt the crunch before I saw her. A horrible, delicate pop beneath my heel. I froze. Looked down. She wasn't squished completely, just broken. Still twitching. I screamed. Elric sat up instantly. What was that? I couldn't answer. Just pointed. He walked over, knelt beside what was left of Matilda. Picked her up with both hands like she was a child. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He whispered she was 16. Then he looked at me. You'll have to bury her. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He handed me a small shoebox lined with tissue paper and moss. Inside, Matilda, her legs carefully tucked, her body posed like she was sleeping. I already made it, he said. For when the time came. He led me out to the backyard behind his apartment. Gave me a tiny, ornate trowel. Told me where to dig. The hole had to be 5 inches deep. No more. No less. I did it. He read a eulogy. Quoted some poem about decay and the cycles of life. We stood in silence afterward for what felt like a full minute. He didn't hold me. He didn't thank me. He just said, Matilda was always afraid of being forgotten. You helped her pass with dignity. That night, I couldn't sleep. Things got stranger after the funeral. Elric's rules multiplied. He asked me to wear socks at all times indoors, said it disturbed the floor spirits otherwise. He reorganized his bookshelf so that all the spines faced the wall. They don't like being watched, he said. He made me sit in the same spot on the couch every time I visited. Told me the cushions were memory mapped and could sense disruption. I tried to laugh it off. Told myself he was just sensitive. Artistic. Maybe grieving in his own way. But the house began to feel less like a home and more like a shrine. Then I found the second shoebox. It was a rainy Sunday. Elric was out running errands. I stayed behind to work on a freelance piece. Got cold. Went searching for a blanket in the hall closet. That's when I saw it. On the top shelf. Black ribbon tied around it, just like Matilda's. I pulled it down. Inside was empty, except for a name written on the lid. My name. In Elric's handwriting. I froze. Stared at it for a full minute, trying to make sense of it. Was it a joke? A gesture? Some kind of symbolic thing? When Elric came home, I asked him. He didn't deny it. Didn't smile. It's for when you leave me, he said softly. What? I prepare. That's all. I laughed nervously. Elric, that's creepy. You can't make a coffin box for me just because we're dating. It's not a coffin, he said. It's a container. For memory. For grief. I don't like forgetting. I told him it made me uncomfortable. He just nodded. Most truth does. After that, the house began to close in around me. I found notes tucked in my bags. Inside my shoes. Tiny slips of paper with phrases like, please don't vanish. Some things shouldn't be left behind. Stay soft. Stay here. I stopped staying the night. He noticed. One evening, he invited me over for something special. I considered saying no, but guilt gnawed at me, so I said yes. He cooked dinner, beat pasta of course blood red, and lit candles all over the apartment. No lights, just flames and shadows. Everything felt deliberate. He handed me a gift. Another shoebox. I hesitated, heart pounding. Open it, he said. Inside was a glass orb. Inside the orb, suspended like a scene from a snow globe, a tiny model of me. Hair, clothes, expression, all accurate. It was too perfect. Too detailed. I made it, he said. From memory. And hair. I dropped the box. He didn't flinch. I don't want to be remembered like this, I said. He blinked slowly. But it's how you are. I left that night. Didn't say goodbye. Changed my number 2 days later. But Elric didn't chase me. Not directly. Instead, I started receiving letters. Each one postmarked with no return address. The envelopes lined with pressed flowers. Inside, drawings. Me sleeping. Me crying. Me holding Matilda's box. He drew me like I was a saint in mourning. Each drawing was signed. E. Archivist of the Dead. I moved cities. New apartment. New friends. New job. But sometimes when I check my mailbox, I still find packages. Shoeboxes. Always empty. Always tied with black ribbon. I never open them anymore. I just know. I met Stellara on a Tuesday that smelled like wet pavement and burnt espresso. It was one of those gray afternoons where the clouds felt heavy enough to fall, and I was waiting in line at a small bookstore cafe that I'd never been to before. I was distracted, scrolling through my phone, half-heartedly eyeing the scones, when someone tapped my shoulder. You've got good taste in sad poetry, a voice said, melodic and sharp with curiosity. I turned, and there she was. Slender, pale, with a soft edge to her smile and eyes that didn't blink as often as they should have. She pointed to the book I had tucked under my arm, Nocturnes for the Broken, a collection of grief-soaked verses I'd bought during a rough patch. I laughed. Guess I'm feeling dramatic. So am I. She smiled again, a slow curl of her lips. Want to sit together? It was so casual. Too easy. But her presence was magnetic, like she walked in the world a few inches off the ground, and being near her felt like gravity bending toward beauty. So I said yes. We sat. We talked. For 4 straight hours. Her name was Stellara. She had once been a cellist, classically trained, had even toured with a small European ensemble. But a long, unnamed illness had ended her performing career. Now she taught piano to children, she called them her tiny stars, and wrote poetry she never shared. She loved the moon but hated the word lunar. Said it sounded cold. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about her. The way she talked, like each word was a verse. The way she watched me, as if I were more important than the world around us. By Friday, we were seeing each other every day. It escalated fast, but I didn't mind. Stellara brought a kind of intensity one hadn't realized I craved. She texted me long paragraphs, philosophical questions, strange dreams, sad childhood memories. When we were together, she was always close, leaning on my shoulder, playing with the cuff of my sleeve, speaking in a tone that hovered between poetry and pleading. She said things like, "Isn't it weird how quickly we become each other's homes? You feel like the last chapter in a book I've read before." At first, it felt romantic, deep, like she was peeling back layers no one else had touched. But then it started to feel too much. She cried when I didn't answer a text right away, apologized for no reason, then accused me of pulling away. She'd stare at me sometimes with a strange sadness and say, "I just hope you don't leave before it's time." I chalked it up to trauma, to passion. I told myself I could handle it. Then, on the 13th day of knowing her, She told me she was dying. We were in my apartment, on the floor beside the couch, drinking cheap wine and listening to a scratched record she'd brought. "My kidneys are failing," she said, so casually I almost didn't hear her. "What?" She repeated it. "They're shutting down. It's genetic. Complicated. I'm not eligible for the transplant list." I froze. "Jesus, Stellara. I didn't know. I'm telling you now." She sipped her wine. "There's a workaround. A directed donor. Someone healthy. Compatible. Someone who loves me." She looked up, her gaze clear and heavy. I knew what she meant. "Stell," I said carefully, "we've only known each other for 2 weeks." Her expression didn't change. Not a flicker. "I know," she said. "I understand." She left shortly after. Said she was tired. She didn't kiss me goodbye. The next morning, my phone was a war zone. Dozens of texts. Missed calls. Emails. Social media notifications piling in like a flood. The first message read, "You monster. I hope she lives long enough to forget you." Another, "It takes a special kind of evil to let someone you love die." Confused, heart pounding, I opened Instagram. And there it was. A post from Stellara. A photo of her in a hospital bed. Tubes in her arm. Her face pale but lit from within, like martyrdom made flesh. The caption read, "He could have saved me. But he chose not to. Some people only love when it's easy." She tagged me. The comments were a funeral of my reputation. Name and shame. This guy's heartless. Imagine being given a chance to be a hero and choosing to be a ghost. This is emotional homicide. Some were from strangers. Some from people I vaguely knew. Friends of friends. College classmates I hadn't spoken to in years. I tried to defend myself, at first. Tried to explain. But each reply was twisted, mocked, dismissed. So I deleted my accounts. All of them. Vanished from the digital world like a ghost. But it didn't stop there. A week later, flyers started appearing. Posted on street lamps near my building. Taped to cafe windows. Left under windshield wipers. Always the same design. A photo of Stellara. The quote from her post. My full name printed underneath in bold. Then the voicemail came. Blocked number. 2:17 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. When I listened, I heard a single sentence whispered like a curse. "Your kidney could have saved her." Then a breath. A click. Silence. I moved apartments. Changed my phone number. Told my boss I was taking a mental health leave. But none of it helped. Once a month, without fail, I received a new letter. No return address. Inside, an organ donor form. Blank. Just waiting for my name. The first one I tore up. The second I burned. The third, I left untouched on my kitchen counter for 3 days. By the 6th, I stopped opening them. But still I kept them. In a box under my bed. I tried to date again. Just once. It went well for a while. But then she Googled me. Her tone changed after that. Said she didn't feel safe. That she trusted survivors. She didn't elaborate. She just left. Months passed. I tried therapy. Group sessions. Meditation. I read books about toxic relationships and victim complexes and internet mob psychology. I told myself none of it was my fault. That I was the one who was used. But sometimes at night, when the wind whistled wrong and my chest felt tight, I thought, maybe I should have said yes. Not because I owed her my body, but because guilt rots slower than grief. Then came the book. I walked into a new bookstore trying to reclaim something, normalcy maybe, peace. And there, on the display table, was a lavender hardcover with no author listed. Just the title. He chose not to. My skin crawled. I opened it. Read the first page. He told me he'd be there. But when I needed him most, he disappeared. He said he wasn't ready. But I was ready to die. I closed it. Looked around like I'd been caught. I bought it. I don't know why. At home, I read it in one sitting. It was her. It had to be. She changed the names, the dates, the cities. But every page bled with our history, rewritten in her favor. I wasn't just the boy who said no. I was the boy who walked away from her grave. I didn't sleep. I paced. Drank too much. Looked her up again anonymously. She was everywhere now. Podcasts. Panels. College talks. Advocate for invisible illnesses. Voice for the medically betrayed. A woman who knows what it means to be left. I found a video of her TEDx talk. She spoke with elegance. Pain. Fire. Sometimes, the ones who kill you don't lift a finger. They just refuse to reach out. The crowd cried. I wanted to throw something through my screen. One night, a new voicemail came. This time, she spoke. "Hey, it's been a while. Just wanted you to know. I'm okay. I've found alternatives. You weren't the only one, after all." A pause. "I never really needed your kidney. Just your guilt." Another pause. "It lasts longer." Then a click. The next day, another form arrived. But this one was different. It was already filled out. My name. My signature. Perfectly forged. I called the police. Showed them everything. They shrugged. "She hasn't made a threat," one officer said. "This is weird, sure. But technically it's legal." What about the forged signature? Could be a prank. I walked out feeling like a character in someone else's horror story. One I couldn't rewrite. I never considered myself gullible. I was cautious with my heart, and even more so with my finances. But that was before I met Daniel. It started innocuously enough. A friend convinced me to join a new social app, Connect, designed to foster professional and personal relationships. I was skeptical but curious. After setting up a profile, I received a message from Daniel Pierce. His profile picture was unassuming, a candid shot of him laughing, eyes crinkled at the corners. His bio mentioned a love for travel, a career in finance, and a recent move to Chicago. He seemed genuine. "Hi Olivia," his first message read. "I noticed we have similar interests in travel and literature. Mind if we chat?" I hesitated but replied. What harm could a conversation do? Our chats became daily rituals. Daniel shared stories of his adventures, hiking in the Rockies, exploring European cities, and his recent endeavors in cryptocurrency investments. He was articulate, knowledgeable, and had a way of making complex financial concepts seem simple. "Crypto is the future," he told me one evening. "I've been fortunate to get in early. It's not just about money, it's about being part of something revolutionary." I admitted my ignorance about cryptocurrencies. Numbers and markets always seemed daunting. He offered to explain, and I found myself intrigued by his passion. Weeks passed, and our connection deepened. Daniel was attentive, always remembering the little details I shared. He'd send me articles about topics I mentioned in passing, and recommend books he thought I'd enjoy. It felt like he truly listened. One evening, after discussing our favorite novels, he shifted the conversation. "Olivia, have you ever considered investing? Not just in crypto, but in general?" I laughed. "Me? I can barely keep track of my savings account." He chuckled. "I understand, but investing isn't just for the wealthy. It's about making your money work for you. I could guide you if you're interested." I was flattered but hesitant. "I don't know, Daniel. It sounds risky." "There's always risk," he admitted. "But with the right strategies, it's manageable. I wouldn't suggest anything I haven't done myself." His confidence was reassuring. Daniel's lessons began informally. He'd send me links to beginner's guides, explain terms like blockchain and wallets, and share his experiences. He emphasized the importance of starting small and only investing what one could afford to lose. After a month, he broached the subject again. "If you're comfortable, I can help you set up a small investment. Just to get your feet wet." I was still unsure. "I appreciate it, but I don't have much to invest." "Even $500 is a start," he encouraged. "Think of it as a learning experience." I mulled it over. Daniel had been nothing but patient and kind. I trusted him. "Okay," I agreed. "Let's do it." We set up an account on a trading platform he recommended. He guided me through the process, ensuring I understood each step. My initial investment was $500, as suggested. To my surprise, within a week, my account showed a modest profit. Daniel celebrated my success, praising my decision. "See, you're already getting the hang of it." His enthusiasm was infectious. Over the next few months, under Daniel's guidance, I made additional investments. Each time, he was there to advise and support. My confidence grew, and so did my trust in him. Then, one evening, he shared an opportunity. "Olivia, there's a new crypto project launching soon. It's invite only, but I can get you in. The potential returns are substantial." I was intrigued but cautious. "How much are we talking about?" "Minimum buy-in is $5,000, he said. "But it's poised to triple within months." $5,000 was a significant sum for me. I hesitated. "Take your time," he said. "I just didn't want you to miss out." I spent the night researching. The project seemed legitimate, and Daniel's track record with me had been solid. I decided to take the plunge. I transferred the funds to the account Daniel provided. He assured me everything was set. Days turned into weeks. I checked the platform regularly, watching as my investment grew, just as Daniel predicted. I felt exhilarated. Then one morning, I tried to log in and couldn't. An error message flashed. Account not found. Panic set in. I called Daniel. "Hey, there's a problem with the platform. I can't access my account." He sounded calm. "Don't worry. They're probably doing maintenance. Give it a few hours." Hours became days. My account remained inaccessible. Daniel's reassurances started to wane. "I'll look into it," he said. "But sometimes these things happen." "What do you mean?" I pressed. "Markets are volatile," he explained. "There's always a risk." "But you said—" "I know what I said," he interrupted. "But nothing is guaranteed." I felt a chasm open between us. The warmth and attentiveness that once defined our interactions were fading. Daniel became elusive, often unavailable or curt in his responses. Desperation led me to deeper research. I discovered forums discussing scams eerily similar to my situation. Stories of individuals who had been lured into investments by trusted acquaintances, only to lose everything. A sinking realization hit me. Had I been conned? I confronted Daniel. "Did you ever care about me, or was I just a target?" He sighed. "Olivia, it's not like that." "Then explain it to me." Silence. "Goodbye, Daniel." I hung up, feeling a mix of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak. In the aftermath, I grappled with self-blame. How had I been so blind? But through support groups and counseling, I learned that manipulation is insidious. Scammers prey on trust and emotions, weaving narratives that cloud judgment. I reported Daniel to the authorities, though I doubted it would lead to restitution. My savings were gone, but I was determined not to let him rob me of my dignity. Months later, I received a message from an unknown number. "Olivia, I'm sorry. Truly. I never meant to hurt you." I deleted it. Some bridges are best left burned. There's a moment when your heart sinks and your brain refuses to follow. It's like the body knows something before your mind will let it in. That happened to me at 7:06 p.m., in a booth by the window at Veretti's Italian Kitchen, in a suburb just outside of Providence. And it all started when Eli told me he had a surprise dinner planned. Eli Dayton was not the surprise dinner type. He was routine, almost to a fault: Monday morning workouts, Friday movie nights, Thai food on Wednesdays. Our relationship was safe. Not boring, just soft around the edges. Predictable, in a comforting way. That's why I said yes when he picked me up that evening with a nervous little smile and said, "I want a night to be special." It didn't even cross my mind to wonder why he seemed pale. I just thought he was trying. We pulled into a quiet parking lot, tucked between an insurance office and an old video rental store turned vape lounge. The restaurant was small, warm lights glowing through sheer curtains, white tablecloths and soft jazz pouring from inside. I'd never been there before. I asked how he found it. He said, "Someone recommended it." The hostess smiled when she saw us. "Party of two?" Eli hesitated, then nodded. We were seated at a table against the wall, near a frosted glass divider. He kept checking his phone, fidgeting with the corner of the napkin. I tried to ignore it. Maybe he was nervous about a proposal or some big job news. I had no idea what was coming. The waiter brought water and menus. I asked Eli, "You okay?" He smiled, but his lips barely moved. "Just a lot on my mind." "Work?" He shook his head. "No, something personal." But he didn't elaborate. I didn't push. At 7:06 p.m., a small bell jingled as the front door opened. I glanced up, half expecting the waiter or another couple. Instead, I saw a woman walk in holding the hand of a little girl. Behind them, 2 boys trailed in, all under 10. Then came the man. Tall. Familiar. My stomach turned, because the man who walked in was Eli. I blinked, looked at the man sitting across from me. Still Eli. Still here. Still real. I looked back at the family by the host stand. The man turned, half smiling. And that's when it hit me. Not a twin. Not a doppelganger. The same man. My Eli. He froze when he saw me. So did the woman. She followed his gaze, her eyes landing on me like knives. The hostess said something, but I didn't hear it. Blood roared in my ears. My body went cold. Then hot. Then hollow. Eli, my Eli, stood up. Not the one by the door. The one at my table. He stood like he was walking toward his own funeral. I stood too. We both faced the front, face to face with his other life. The woman stepped forward. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply asked, Is this the one? Eli didn't answer. I did. Who are you? She laughed. Not kindly. I'm his wife, she said. And those are our kids. I felt my knees give. I grabbed the table to steady myself. Wife, I repeated like a ghost echoing through a canyon. Eli closed his eyes. I was going to tell you, he said quietly. I laughed. Out loud. Ugly and loud. In a restaurant? He looked down. I didn't know how else. The staff was watching. Other diners turned their heads, pretending not to. The children were confused. The little girl clung to her mother's coat. One of the boys asked, Who's that lady, Dad? Eli's wife knelt down and whispered something to them, then stood and said to me, You should leave. No, I said, surprising even myself. I think he should leave. She tilted her head. Why? Because I didn't lie to anyone. Eli finally moved, walked toward her, then stopped, turned back to me. I didn't mean for it to go this far. That sentence, the last pathetic nail in the coffin. I grabbed my purse and walked past them all. Didn't run, didn't cry, just walked. Out the door, into the cold night. He followed me to the parking lot. Wait, please. Just listen. I turned on him. How long? He didn't answer. How long? 3 years, he whispered. 3 years. That meant he had a double life longer than most people keep houseplants alive. Did they know about me? I asked. No. Did I meet your kids at the grocery store that one time? He didn't answer. Because he knew. I didn't drive home. I drove to a motel 30 miles away. I sat in the bathtub, fully clothed, water rising to my waist, thinking about every moment that had felt real and wondering what he was doing during those hours he wasn't with me. I thought about the weekend trips he canceled, the last-minute business calls, the ring-shaped indent on his finger that never matched the story about an old injury. And I remembered the little girl's face. She had his eyes. The next day I changed the locks, deleted every picture, blocked every number. I didn't give him a chance to explain, because there's no explanation for making someone an accessory to betrayal. He sent me a letter. 1 page. Typed. It said, I loved you in my own way. I wish I could have made space for you without destroying what I already had. I'm sorry you found out like that. Maybe one day you'll understand. I didn't reply. I burned it in a ceramic bowl in the backyard, watched the ash scatter, and I hoped he was watching the wind carry it away. It's been a year. Sometimes I still think about that restaurant. I drive past it and see couples at the window, laughing over breadsticks. I wonder how many of them are telling the truth, and how many are just better liars. Eli Dayton doesn't exist anymore. Not for me. He's just a memory, a ghost in a booth at Veretti's. And somewhere out there, his daughter is old enough now to ask real questions. I hope he tells her the truth. I hope she doesn't learn it the way I did, at a dinner she was never supposed to attend. I never thought a few handwritten notes could tear my entire life down. People say the scariest things in a relationship are the big betrayals, cheating, lying, secrets, but no one tells you about the quiet horrors. The ones that sneak up slowly, disguised as affection. The ones you don't see until you're standing in front of a fireplace full of ash, wondering how you became a stranger in your own life. That's what happened with Marlo Finch. We met at a temp job in Dayton, Ohio. A bland office with beige walls and too much fluorescent lighting. I was in the middle of rebuilding my life after a breakup and a move, and she was the new girl with the silent laugh and chipped nail polish. Marlo was the kind of person you noticed twice. First because she seemed invisible, and second because you couldn't figure out why. She was quiet, careful, the type to listen more than speak. She always brought her lunch in a blue tin box and wore rings that looked like they had stories. One afternoon, I caught her humming Radiohead under her breath at the printer. I made a joke about depressing music, and for the first time, she smiled at me, really smiled like she hadn't done that in a long time. That's how it started. Our first real date wasn't even a date. We just wandered around a used bookstore after work. She bought me a copy of The Bell Jar and scribbled her number inside the front cover. I don't do texting much, she said, but I write a lot. She wasn't lying. At first, it was cute. She started leaving me little notes. Folded pieces of paper slipped into my bag, or tucked into the pages of books she lent me. They weren't love letters, at least not in the traditional sense. Sometimes it was just a sentence. The wind reminded me of your voice today. Or, I saw a dead bird and thought beauty is sad too. We weren't even official yet, but the letters came daily. After a few weeks, I had a shoebox full. It didn't feel obsessive. Not yet. It felt like I was being chosen, like I mattered in some way I hadn't before. Marlo had a way of making the smallest things feel sacred. She'd bring me my favorite coffee before I even knew I needed it. She remembered my parents' names. She noticed the calluses on my hands, and guessed I used to play guitar. I'd dated people before. But Marlo, she saw me. That kind of intimacy is addictive. The letters changed. They got longer, denser, more confessional. She started writing about her past, things she hadn't said out loud. Her childhood, her loneliness, her fear of being forgotten, her belief that people only stay until they learn enough to leave. She always ended them with, "Tell me I'm wrong." I didn't know what to say. After 3 months, I started to feel crowded, like I was being watched, even when I was alone. Every day a new letter. In my coat pocket, my lunch bag, once in the bathroom cabinet. 10-page essays about how much she needed me, how I was the only one who ever made her feel real, how losing me would be like falling into the ocean with bricks tied to her ankles. The handwriting got shakier. The paper smelled like her perfume, an old lavender scent that clung to everything. I told myself she was just sensitive, passionate, a little dramatic, but the truth was I was scared. I tried to talk to her about it. We were sitting in my apartment, eating pizza on the floor. I tried to keep my tone light. "You don't have to write every day, you know. I like hearing from you in person." She didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, "Do you not like them?" "I do. It's just a lot sometimes." She smiled. That same crooked smile from the printer. But it didn't reach her eyes. "I just want you to remember me." "Why would I forget you?" She looked away. "Everyone forgets." After that, the letters stopped. Not immediately. They slowed down. From every day to every few days. Then once a week. And so did she. We stopped hanging out as much. She canceled plans. Got quiet. Wouldn't look me in the eye. The warmth I'd fallen for faded like breath on glass. Her messages became single words. "Okay. Sure. Fine." I tried to make things better. I brought her flowers. Wrote her a letter. But she never opened it. Just placed it on my table and said, "That's not who you are." A month passed. Then one night, I came home from work and smelled smoke. Not fire, smoke. Lingering. Heavy. I panicked. Thought I left the stove on. But when I turned the corner into the living room, I froze. The fireplace was full of ash. The letters, every single one she had ever given me, were gone. All that remained were little black flakes, curling and fragile. The shoebox was missing. The book she gave me. Even the sticky notes on my fridge. All of it gone. Burned. I didn't understand. Was it a breakup? A warning? I called. No answer. Texted. Nothing. I drove to her place the next night. Knocked for 10 minutes straight. Finally, she opened the door. Not fully. Just a crack. Her eyes looked different. Hollow. What did I do? I asked. She said nothing. I asked why she burned the letters. She said flatly, "You asked me to stop. That doesn't mean destroy them. I don't give pieces of myself to people who don't want them." Her voice was calm. Not angry. Not sad. Just empty. "I won't write to you again," she said. "And I won't give you anything you didn't ask for." And then she shut the door. I never saw her again. I tried at first. A few calls. Emails. Messages. They all vanished into the void. Eventually, her number disconnected. Her Instagram disappeared. She quit her job. It was like she'd evaporated. Like she'd been a dream. A strange, lavender-scented dream that turned to smoke the moment I tried to hold it. Months passed. I moved apartments. Tried dating again. It didn't stick. Nothing really does anymore. Every time someone texts me a heart, I wonder if they'd tattoo it on their skin the way Marlo inked my name into her paper soul. Every time I see a letter in the mail, I hesitate. Even junk mail feels like a ghost tapping on the door. One rainy night, nearly a year later, I found a manila envelope wedged under my front door. No return address. No name. Inside, ashes. And a single scrap of paper. Her handwriting. One line. "Now there's nothing left to remember me by." I don't know where she went. But I still dream of Marlo Finch. Sometimes she's writing letters. Sometimes she's setting them on fire. But she never speaks. If you told me 5 dates could change your life, I'd have laughed in your face. But that's before Dahlia Ray walked into it, barefoot, smiling, and carrying a beer she didn't pay for. I met her at a backyard party in Asheville, North Carolina. Someone's birthday. I didn't know the birthday guy, or half the people there. I'd only come because my coworker begged me to get out of the house and touch grass. It was mid-September. The air was crisp, but not cold, and the music was just loud enough to drown your thoughts. Dahlia stood out immediately. She wasn't dressed like everyone else, no crop top, no flannel. Just a vintage sundress and a thick leather cuff on her wrist. Her hair was tangled in that purposeful way, like she'd just run through a field and liked how it felt. She looked like chaos on vacation, and I wanted to know her name. The first date was coffee. The second was a night hike, which I now realize was weird, but at the time just felt adventurous. By the third, I had memorized the sound of her laugh. It came out of her throat like wind through stained glass, sharp, pretty, and not meant to last long. She'd touch my arm when she talked. Not flirtatious, almost territorial. She made me feel like the only person in the world, or maybe the only one who mattered. By the fifth date, she told me she was getting a tattoo. We were lying in my bed, half-dressed, the curtains wide open. The moonlight painted her skin in silver. She rolled over, kissed my shoulder, and whispered, "I want to get your name." I laughed. "You're joking." She wasn't. Her eyes were wide, glassy. Serious. She looked at me like I was the answer to a riddle she hadn't realized she was asking. "I just know," she said. "We've known each other for like 2 weeks." "Time doesn't measure meaning," she said, in that poetic way she had. "Some people take years. Some people just know." I told her to wait, that it was sweet but impulsive. She nodded slowly, then smiled. The subject didn't come up again. Until it did. 2 nights later, she texted me. "Meet me at 8. Bring tequila." I assumed we were drinking. Instead, she dragged me to a tattoo parlor on the edge of town. Neon lights buzzed overhead like they were trying to speak in code. The place was half closed, the artist clearly doing Dahlia a favor. The guy greeted her like an old friend. Called her Red, even though her hair was black. She winked at me and said, "This won't take long." And then I saw the stencil on the table. Oren. My name. In Gothic script. It wasn't a prank. Or a test. She was doing it. I froze. Said her name once, quiet, sharp. "Dahlia, don't." But she didn't even hesitate. She dropped her dress to reveal her hip, smiled at the artist, and said, "Right here." I stood there like a damn ghost while he needled ink into her skin. 15 minutes later, she had my name permanently etched into her flesh. She turned to me after and said, "Now I'm yours. Du skuld veveran." I should have known better. But instead I kissed her. Because I didn't know how to make sense of what had just happened. Things got strange after that. More intense. She became possessive. If I didn't text back fast enough, she'd send 10 follow-ups. Show up at my place unannounced. Once I told her I couldn't hang out because I was sick. She showed up anyway with soup and a thermometer, then got upset that I didn't want to cuddle. Another time, she admitted she'd gone through my Instagram and deleted comments from girls she didn't like. I tried to set boundaries, but she'd twist them into declarations. "I only do that because I love you. You're scared of intimacy. That's okay. I'll be patient. You're not used to being seen." No matter what I said, it was like talking to water. She flowed around it, always adapting, always justifying. A month in, I started pulling away. Not ghosting her. Just making space. She felt it. The last night we spent together, we sat in her apartment in silence. She was curled up in the corner of the couch, smoking clove cigarettes and staring at the floor. "Do you not love me anymore?" she asked. "I never said I did," I replied. She looked up slowly. "You didn't have to," she said. "It was obvious." Then she stood, walked into the bathroom, and closed the door. I left 5 minutes later. Didn't say goodbye. 2 days passed. Then 3. I didn't hear from her. I figured she was giving me the cold shoulder. Or maybe she was finally moving on. Then a week after I last saw her, I got tagged in a photo on Instagram. It was her, sitting in a tattoo parlor. Same artist. Same shop. Caption, "Some things were mistakes. Time to make space for something new." The photo showed her hip, where my name had been. Now it was covered in a black rose. My name was gone. Erased. That should have been closure. But it wasn't. I thought that would be the end. That she'd delete me from her phone and move on to the next Oren. Or Tyler. Or Jude. But she didn't just move on. She rewrote. The week after her cover-up post, I started getting texts from mutual acquaintances. "Hey, Dahlia's saying some stuff about you. You okay?" She told me you got her name tattooed on you and then cheated. She said you stalked her after she broke up with you? My stomach flipped. I hadn't spoken to her since she got the rose. But now she was spinning tales, stories where I was the unstable one, the obsessive one, the villain. She turned me into her ghost. I tried to ignore it, but the stories spread. I lost a freelance gig because the studio manager had heard rumors. One of my closest friends asked if we needed to talk about boundaries. And all the while, Dahlia kept posting vague captions with sad girl poetry. He said he loved me, then disappeared. Funny how people pretend to care. Healing isn't linear, especially after betrayal. No names, no tags, but enough context to poison the well. One night, I drove by her apartment. Don't ask me why. Curiosity, maybe. Or ego. I parked across the street. Her lights were off. Just as I was about to leave, I saw something move. A flicker in the shadows. And then I saw her, standing in the window, staring at me, not blinking, not smiling, just watching. I left, blocked her number, deleted every photo, unfollowed everyone we'd met together. I thought I was done, but obsession doesn't always end when you cut the line. Sometimes it swims up your spine. Last week, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, no return address. Inside, a single photograph. It was a picture of her hip. The rose tattoo? Gone. Lasered off. Red, raw skin where the ink used to be. On the back of the photo, scrawled in blue ink. Mistakes fade, but memories don't. I don't know what she wants, or how far she's willing to go. But every time I see someone with black hair and bare shoulders, I look twice. Every time I get a call from an unknown number, I hesitate. Because I know Dahlia Ray is still out there, and she still has my name. You ever meet someone who talks so smooth, you don't realize you've stepped into a trap until the jaws are already locked? That's what it was like with Ransom Breyer. He was all charm and teeth, warm drawl, sleeves rolled to the elbows, a twinkle in his eye like he knew something you didn't. I met him at a 4th of July block party in Sweetwater, Alabama. I was drinking dollar beer out of a red cup, sitting on the tailgate of a truck, watching kids run with sparklers. He walked up in snakeskin boots and a grin. Said, "You look like someone with ambition." "That true?" I laughed. Said, "I look like someone 3 beers in." He didn't miss a beat. That's when people are honest. Ransom was the kind of guy who made you feel seen. I don't mean in a flirty way, though Lord knows he could flirt with a stop sign. I mean in that rare way where someone looks at you and seems to know the quiet parts. I told him I was in between jobs. He nodded like he understood, then offered to buy me a drink even though it was free beer. Said he was working on a project. Something new. Something disruptive. I should have known right then. Nobody in Sweetwater says disruptive unless they're selling something or quoting Elon Musk. We started hanging out more after that night. Ransom would roll up in his old white El Camino, music playing low, always smelling faintly of cedarwood and trouble. We'd sit on my porch and talk about life, dreams, money, or the lack of it. He'd ask me, "What would you do if you didn't have to worry about bills?" I'd say dumb stuff, open a plant shop, travel to New Orleans, write a book I'd never finish. He'd smile and say, "Let's make that happen." I didn't think much of it until he invited me to a business mixer. It was held in the back of an old event hall, just outside of town. Too many folding chairs, too much energy. People were clapping for each other. I sat in the back, wondering if I'd stumbled into a cult or a motivational seminar. Sometimes it's both. Then a man in a cheap suit got on stage and started talking about opportunity. About changing your life one connection at a time. About being your own boss. They passed out glossy pamphlets with flowcharts and phrases like vertical expansion and financial freedom. That's when I heard it. The word. Recruitment. I knew what this was. A pyramid scheme. Or multi-level marketing, if you want to dress it up with lipstick and lies. I leaned over to Ransom and whispered, "Are you serious?" He just winked. Trust me. I should have walked out. Should have run, actually. But I didn't. Because Ransom talked. And when Ransom talked, you listened. He made it sound like more than just selling vitamins or oils or whatever nonsense they were pushing. He said this was the early phase, that we'd be ahead of the curve, that the real money wasn't in selling, but in building a team. I said I didn't know anything about sales. He said, "You don't need to know. You just need to believe." The buy-in was $500. That was 2 months of rent for me. He told me to see it as an investment. A seed. I didn't have it, so I took out a payday loan. Just something small. I figured I'd pay it off when the money started rolling in. That's how they get you, see? Not with lies. With hope. The first few weeks were actually kind of exciting. Ransom helped me set up my team. He even gave me a list of names to call, people he'd already talked to, who were warm leads. I made a couple sales. Signed on 2 people. Got a check in the mail for $97. That's all it took to convince me it was working. But the money didn't stay. The expenses piled up, monthly product orders to stay active, fees for webinars and conferences, little investment packages. Every time I fell short, Ransom would say the same thing. Growth takes pain, sugar. Keep going. After 3 months, I was $1,400 in debt. The 2 people I signed on had already quit. One of them called me crying, said she used her kids' school money to buy products she couldn't sell. I went to Ransom's house to talk. His place was nice. Too nice. Big TV. Leather couches. Expensive whiskey on the counter. I asked him how much he was actually making. He laughed. Enough to stay ahead. That doesn't answer the question, I said. He looked at me dead in the eyes. The charm flickered. Something colder underneath. You gotta understand something, he said. The people who win this game, they don't wait for permission. I left without another word. But the doubt had bloomed. I started reading. Digging. Found forums online filled with stories like mine. Folks who'd lost thousands chasing the dream. Lawsuits. Bankruptcy. Burned bridges. Every testimonial Ransom had shown me. Fake. Scripted. Or people who'd been in so early they were part of the scheme. The deeper I went, the sicker I felt. I'd recruited people into this. People who trusted me. And for what? So Ransom could fill his gas tank and post motivational quotes on Instagram. I confronted him a week later. I didn't go to his house. I caught him at a gas station. I knew he stopped there every Sunday night before driving out to Birmingham for leadership retreats. He was wearing that same damn grin. I walked right up and said, "I'm done." He blinked, then smiled wider. "You quitting?" "No. I'm pulling out. And I want my money back." He laughed. Laughed. "That's not how this works." "I know exactly how it works." His face shifted. For a second, I saw the man without the mask. "You should have known better," he said. "Nobody forced you." And that was it. He got in his car and drove away. Didn't even say goodbye. That was the last time I saw him. A few months later, I heard the company had been flagged for fraud. Ransom's social media went dark. Rumor was he moved out west. Or maybe down to Mexico. Every now and then, someone in town brings up his name, usually with a half laugh, half scowl. But me? I still think about him. Not just about what he did, but how good he was at doing it. He didn't steal from people. Not with guns or threats. He used belief as a blade. And the worst part, sometimes, I still catch myself wondering what would have happened if I hadn't quit. If I just stuck it out, believed a little harder. That's how deep it goes. There's a line between cute and unsettling. I didn't see it at first, not when Kimber flashed that crooked little grin and said, "Can I have a bite of yours?" We were sitting in this greasy spoon diner on the edge of Starkville, Mississippi. The kind of place where the coffee tastes like motor oil and the waitress calls everyone honey. Kimbra ordered a salad. I ordered a double cheeseburger with curly fries and a milkshake. She took a bite of my burger before I even touched it. I laughed. It was charming in that first date kind of way. She looked so proud of herself, like she'd gotten away with a harmless heist. I said, "You didn't even ask," and she said, "That's how I show I'm comfortable." She said it like I should be honored. The food sharing thing didn't stop. It wasn't just the occasional fry or sip of my soda. It was every meal, every time. Kimbra never wanted what she ordered. She wanted mine. She'd pick at her food like it was an afterthought, and then dive into mine like she'd been starving for weeks. We could be at a 5-star brunch, or just eating leftover spaghetti, and she'd still lean in like a vulture. At first, I told myself it was a quirk. Everyone's got one, right? Some people bite their nails. Some talk to their plants. Kimbra stole food. Fine. But then it started feeling like something else. Something intentional. We dated for 5 months. I kept track, because that's how long I waited for her to offer me a bite of her food. Not once. Not one forkful. Not a crust of toast. Nothing. She'd say, "I'm not a good sharer," like it was an adorable confession, while her hand was literally inside my bag of chips. I thought about bringing it up gently. But it felt petty. Who argues over food, right? Still, it ate at me. Pun intended. One night, we were making dinner at my apartment. Grilled chicken, mashed potatoes, roasted broccoli. Kimber kept grabbing pieces of the chicken while I was still cooking it. I said, "Can you just wait till it's done?" She laughed and said, "It's just food, baby." But it wasn't just food. It was the feeling that I never got to have anything to myself. The final straw came on a Tuesday. We went to Bramble and Birch, a burger joint I'd been dying to try for months. I ordered the Goliath, a double patty with bourbon-glazed onions, blue cheese, and thick-cut bacon. Kimbra ordered a side salad with a bite of whatever you get. The burger arrived like a work of art, golden bun, crisped edges, juice glistening. I stared at it for a moment in reverence. And then, like clockwork, Kimbra reached across the table. No pause, no warning, just her hand on my plate, and something inside me broke. I stood up, picked up the plate, walked over to the trash can, and dropped the entire burger in. Kimbra froze, her hand still hovering midair. The whole restaurant went quiet. She blinked once, twice, like she couldn't comprehend what had just happened. "Did you just?" she started. I didn't answer, just sat back down and sipped my water. The silence stretched between us like a noose. Kimbra's expression wasn't angry. It was confused, almost hurt. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered. "But I did. I had to, because that bite wasn't just a bite. It was a tiny theft 1,000 times over." After that, something changed. She stopped texting as much. Our conversations were stiff, forced. I tried to explain myself, to say it wasn't about the food, it was about me. About how I felt like I was always giving and never getting. She nodded, said she understood. But she didn't apologize. She never admitted to anything. Just said, "You're really sensitive about dumb stuff." We lasted another week. Then she stopped replying altogether. I figured that was it. Until last Thursday. I came home from work, opened my fridge, and saw it. A single Tupperware container. I live alone. No one has a key. Inside the container, a burger. Not just any burger. The Goliath. Exactly the way I'd ordered it that night. No note. No explanation. Just that burger, perfect, untouched, cold. I threw it out. But the next day there was another one. Same container. Same burger. And then another. Every day since, I come home to the same damn burger in my fridge. I've changed the locks. Set up a camera. No footage. No visitors. Just the burger. Always in the same spot, wrapped with care. Waiting. And last night, the burger was gone. But taped to the fridge was a napkin. My napkin. From Bramble and Birch. In thick black ink, written in that familiar loopy handwriting. "You didn't let me finish." I used to think that when someone left, they'd at least have the decency to leave a note. Something. A word. A sentence. A goodbye. But when Corvin Miles disappeared, he left nothing. No voicemail. No apology. Not even a damn coffee mug. Just silence. I met him the second week of April, in a smoky jazz bar on the edge of downtown Erie, Pennsylvania. He wore old denim and a caramel-colored hoodie, with a book under one arm and a camera slung over the other. His smile was crooked, the kind that makes you wonder what kind of trouble he's caused, and how much you're willing to forgive just to keep it aimed in your direction. He sat beside me at the bar and ordered bourbon neat, then looked over and said, "You look like someone who reads sad poetry on rainy mornings." I laughed because it was true, because I had Emily Dickinson in my purse and clouds in my chest. We were a soft kind of quick. 1 week in, we were taking late-night drives by the lake. 2 weeks in, I knew the exact angle he liked his photos printed. By the third, we'd kissed on the roof of his building during a thunderstorm. It was casual, but it was something, and I was content not defining it. Corvin was easy to like, but hard to hold on to. He floated through life like the idea of permanence offended him. But when we were together, it felt like maybe I was enough weight to keep him grounded. Until I wasn't. I should have seen it sooner. The vanishing. The exit wound. He never lied exactly, but there were gaps. Nights he said he was editing, but didn't send a single picture. Weekend plans that changed last minute. Sometimes he wouldn't text for a day, and when he did, it was always something vague. Lost in the lens today. Head full of noise. Rain helped. That was Corvin. Beautiful, poetic excuses wrapped in silence. I let it slide. Told myself not to overthink it. We weren't exclusive. We never said the words. But God, I wanted to. The truth came out by accident. It was a Friday night. I was at a friend's birthday party, leaning against the kitchen counter sipping wine, when someone mentioned Corvin. Not to me directly, but loud enough that my ears perked up. "Oh, you mean Corvin? The one who just got married?" I almost choked. I turned, slow and disbelieving, and said, "Corvin Miles?" The girl who said it, Ari I think, froze. Her eyes darted to the floor. "Oh, I thought you knew." The room tilted. Married. He hadn't even ended things with me. He'd replaced me. I left the party without saying goodbye. Walked 5 blocks in the cold without feeling my legs. When I got home, I sat in the bathtub fully clothed and scrolled through every message we'd sent. I read our last conversation again. Me. Hope your flight went okay. You never said where you were headed. Corvin. Nowhere important. Just needed a change of sky. That was the last thing he ever said to me. 2 weeks later, I found out where that sky was, New Zealand. He'd flown there and married someone named Leora. Her Instagram was full of beach photos and barefoot vows. The date stamped beneath them was just 4 days after he kissed me goodbye. I didn't cry right away. My body felt too numb for grief. Instead, I printed every photo we'd taken together and tore them in half. Quiet, methodical violence. I deleted his number. Blocked him everywhere. But deleting a ghost doesn't mean it stops haunting you. For weeks, I kept dreaming of him. In the dreams, he'd walk toward me, hand outstretched, mouth moving, but no sound came out. Just that smile. That damn smile. One night, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. I heard what happened. "You're not the only one." It was from a woman named Kayla. She said she'd dated Corvin on and off for a year. She hadn't heard from him since January. Just vanished. Blocked. Gone. Another woman, Lena, messaged me a week later. Same story. 3 of us. Maybe more. Different cities. Different versions of him. All abandoned in the same quiet, careful way. He'd made each of us feel like we were the only ones. Like the center of a photograph. Turns out, we were just props in his portfolio. It's been 6 months. I don't talk about him much. Most people don't understand how you can miss someone who treated you like a disposable moment. But I do miss him. Or the version of him that was real to me. I miss the way he narrated the world like it was a poem. The way he'd tilt his head when he laughed. But more than that, I miss the me I was with him. Hopeful. Open. Soft. I'm not like that anymore. Now I second guess every, "I miss you." Now I wait for the silence after every, "I'm busy." A few nights ago, I saw a photograph in an online exhibit. It was part of a travel series. The photographer's name? Corvin Miles. The photo was of a beach. In the corner, barely noticeable, was a girl with long dark hair, standing alone, barefoot in the sand. I stared at it for a long time. She wasn't smiling, and I wondered if she even knew the camera was there. I never thought a relationship could unravel over something as simple as paper. When I first met Tamsin Vale, she barely said a word to me. It was late autumn in Hickory Ridge, Tennessee, a sleepy little town pressed up against the hills, with a diner that always smelled like bacon grease and fresh-baked pie. I was bartending on the weekends, finishing up my HVAC certification during the week, and generally coasting through life without much care for detours. I wasn't looking for anyone, really. That's usually when they show up, isn't it? She'd walk into the bar around 9:15 every Friday night like clockwork, sit in the far booth with a worn copy of Wuthering Heights, and order a Coke with a cherry in it. No alcohol, just the cherry. The first few weeks, I didn't say much beyond the usual bartender small talk. She'd smile barely and get lost in her book. One night, she left a napkin on the bar with a note scribbled in tiny, looping handwriting. "You seem tired tonight. I hope something good happens to you soon." I thought maybe it was a joke at first. But she wasn't the joking type. Not the way she looked at people. You know how some folks look at you like they're reading your surface? Tamsin looked like she was deciphering your soul. I smiled at the note, and the next Friday, I left one back. I slept better. Thanks. It became our ritual, exchanging napkin notes like grade school kids in church. We never said much out loud, but on paper, it was like we were whole other people. Honest. Open. And somehow more ourselves. Eventually, we started seeing each other outside the bar. Casual stuff, late-night walks, thrift store treasure hunts, sharing bad coffee at the gas station table while listening to cicadas. She was odd, sure, but in a lovely way. Kind of like a lantern in the fog. You're not sure where she came from, but she makes the dark feel warmer. And the letters? That's when they started. At first, they were just little notes. A few words in the pocket of my jacket. A sticky note on my dash. "I dreamed of you," she'd write. Or, "You made me laugh yesterday." Thank you. Cute stuff. Thoughtful. Nothing to worry about. Then came the envelopes. They were always handmade, brown craft paper or old-fashioned stationery, sealed with wax. She'd hand them to me after we hung out, or I'd find them wedged between the windshield wipers or slipped into my lunchbox at work. The letters were longer. A page, then 3. Some were stories about her day, others just poems or lists of things that reminded her of me, like pine needles or static on an old TV. I'm not made of stone. I loved it. I loved her. No one had ever seen me that clearly or gone out of their way to make me feel, thought of. But they didn't stop. Not even when I asked. There's a strange kind of panic that sets in when something once sweet starts to feel like a weight. By the 4th month of our relationship, the letters came every day. Sometimes twice a day. One in my mailbox. Another in the glove box. One I found tucked inside my toaster. Some were 10, 12 pages long, stream of consciousness writing that felt like she had emptied herself onto paper. They weren't romantic anymore. Not really. They were obsessive. She'd write about how she missed me even when I was still in the room, how time felt longer without me, how she couldn't fall asleep unless she imagined the shape of my hands. It got under my skin. I started feeling like I wasn't allowed to breathe without her knowing how the air felt. One night, after a long double shift and a phone call with my dad that ended in yelling, I came home to find another envelope on my pillow. I didn't even open it. Just sat there staring at it, heart pounding, feeling like I was choking on love that had rotted into something else. That night, I told her. Gently, I thought. I said I appreciated the letters, really did, but she didn't have to write them every day. Told her I loved her, but I needed space. That it was starting to feel like she wasn't just sharing with me, she was smothering me. She smiled, tight-lipped, unreadable, and said, "Okay, I understand." But something in her eyes changed. Tamsin didn't stop talking to me, but the air between us shifted. She pulled back, way back. We'd still hang out sometimes, but she wouldn't touch me. Wouldn't make eye contact. She went silent. Not mad. Not sad. Just vacant. The girl who used to light up when I walked into the room now blinked like I was a stranger. She stopped showing up to the bar. Stopped answering texts. Weeks went by like that, and I tried to play it cool, tried to give her space. But the quiet got heavy. It felt like she'd packed up her soul and moved out of her body. I missed the letters. God help me, I missed the way they used to feel. Then one night, I came home and smelled smoke. It was faint at first, like a candle gone cold. I checked the kitchen. Nothing. Then the bedroom. That's where I saw it. My fireplace, never used before, was now filled with black ash and scraps of singed paper. I stepped closer. The charred remains of wax seals. Torn envelopes. Snippets of phrases I remembered from months ago. She had burned every letter she'd ever written me. Not one or two. All of them. I didn't need to ask why. It wasn't an accident. It was a message. The next morning, I drove to her place. Knocked on the door for what felt like forever. No answer. Eventually, she opened it just a crack. Her eyes were glassy, unfocused. "Tamsin," I said, "why'd you burn the letters?" She stared at me. Not angry. Not sad. Just blank. "You asked me to stop," she whispered. "I didn't mean like that," I said. "I just needed space." She shrugged. "You didn't want the letters. So I got rid of them. And now, there's nothing else left." I reached for her hand. She pulled away like I was fire. "I can't be around someone who doesn't want all of me," she said. And the letters were the part that mattered. Then she closed the door. That was the last time I saw her. I tried calling. Texting. No response. A week later, her number was disconnected. Her apartment was empty. Like she'd never lived there. No forwarding address. No social media. No trail. Just gone. Every so often, I'd hear rumors. Someone who said they'd seen her at a rest stop in Missouri, or an artist who swore she'd mailed them a sketch with no return address. But nothing solid. Like she'd evaporated. I tried to move on. Dated someone else for a while. But nothing stuck. She haunted me, not as a ghost, but as an echo. Every time I saw a wax seal. Every time I got mail. Every time someone said something beautiful in too few words. Last week, I found something odd in my mailbox. No name. No stamp. Just a brown envelope with a crimson wax seal. Inside was a note, handwritten, looping letters I hadn't seen in nearly a year. No dear. No sincerely. Just. Some people leave with silence. Others leave with fire. I left you with both. I sat down on the porch and read it again and again. Then I looked up at the trees lining the road, half expecting to see her watching me through the branches. But there was nothing there, only the wind, rustling like pages.